It's a really a nice place to be if you are already a SRE or DevOps person, software engineer, because you have all the foundation skills to understand the field. Definitely just get your hands dirty with security topics. Start from the field that you are already in. Could you add to your dashboards or like the Grafana alerting that is connected with security? Have insights in what security metrics are maybe around you in your company or in the podcasts that you listen to or like platforms that could make you the idea what to measure or what to look for. Of course, there is also the foundational knowledge base for security topics. For example, least privilege principle or zero trust concept that is very hyped now.
Welcome to Season 4 of The Elephant in AppSec, the podcast to explore, challenge, and boldly face the AppSec elephants in the room. I'm Aleksandra, your host, AppSec enthusiast, and growth manager at Escape. Today, I'm joined by Aleksandra Kornecka, a security engineer with a global mindset. She recently transitioned from Senior AppSec Engineer to Cloud Infrastructure Security Engineer and has a background in software testing and cognitive science, a combination that gives her a unique take on both the technical and human sides of security. As a member of OWASP Security Champions Guide and the project's artifacts stream, Aleksandra also put efforts to collect templates, documents, and other artifacts useful to build the Security Champions programs. In this episode, we dive into the mindset shift developers need to successfully break into security and why security champions are critical for scaling security awareness across organizations. We'll also explore how curiosity fuels a lasting passion for security and unpack why zero trust is often misunderstood and overhyped. If you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to subscribe and follow it on your favorite podcasting app or YouTube. It's the best way to avoid missing future episodes. And with that, get ready to hear Aleksandra's opinions. Dive right in. Hi, Aleksandra. I'm excited to have you on the Elephant and AppSec podcast with me today. So it's finally both Aleksandras together in the house. I'd say it's first time, someone with the same
Nice.
name. I think it's actually like it was quite common name where I'm come from, but it's quite rare, at least in France and in Netherlands. So yeah, and I saw you've been quite active in the European community on your side in application security European community, and you've participated in OWASP AppSec in Barcelona as well, and been quite involved in the security champions too, and that's how kind of I came across your profile and your talk there. And recently, you've also though transitioned from more like hands-on AppSec work, more into like cloud infrastructure focused role, right? But you kind of still continue to be involved in a OWASP Security Champions project. You also had some background and QA, so
Yeah,
like
indeed.
very, very diverse profile. I presume you are more on the generalist side, like you like something and you kind of want to learn more about it and specialize, but not like a specialized for everyone thing. So have you noticed more on the, like any shift or any difference in thinking when you switched to like cloud infrastructure side and how developers on infra more engage with security, like depending on what they have to do?
Yeah, sure. There are some differences. And first of all, thank you for having me and hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I have even more mixed background because I started my work journey in IT, but it was in software engineering, software testing, quality assurance. So I came from other side than usually security teams are coming. And I think it was a really amazing journey between all these roles. So first, when I came into cybersecurity side in general, which was more close to application security, a couple of years ago, it was like the switch over the fence. Like I was previously building the software with the people, and then I was securing the software with other people that had some common points and backgrounds, but also different type of mindset or different focus points. So yeah, and now in changing inside cybersecurity
Yeah.
from more AppSec hands-on and awareness and digging into vulnerabilities, I found myself more on the other layer, let's say. So infrastructure, security, mostly cloud. And that's indeed a little bit different path too. It's a different focus point. It's still work with people and software, but on another level. And I see that the more into engineering and infrastructure, the more you're thinking in systematic way, like more like the whole system or ecosystem, let's say, than the particular vulnerabilities or apps and so on. So definitely there's like the perspective switch, a little bit mindset switch, but still all over the software and security of the software.
Judging by the fact that now you have to think more, about the system as a whole, the kind of new skills that you had to learn to ramp up on that role?
Um, that's interesting question because I would say there were many new things, but also I built a lot of what I already was doing or like what I already had in my skill set. From the new side, I would say understanding more how it is under the hood. Previously, I did not need to go very much down to the bare metal or like understanding networking in the details. And now I feel I'm on the learning curve for that.
Yeah.
So of course I can operate, for example, Amazon Web Services or GCP or other cloud SaaS. I understand what's happening there, but I'm not having it knowledge like to the very signal layer, like how it works very under the hood. So I think the virtualization layer is here the interesting new area for me. And I'm still learning how it's actually happening that the storage bucket is a storage bucket and what's beside apart from the servers under the desert somewhere in Oklahoma or something like that.
Hopefully, if the servers and data stored in Europe, it doesn't end up in Oklahoma.
Yeah, of
Uh,
course.
for us, but I think I can relate on that part that the infrastructure is definitely different and definitely sometimes very complicated to visualize, like how it's all connected. At least I know, like for myself, it's probably the hardest part to understand of like all whole tech team with whom I've been interacting quite a lot. And from you coming, from development background, like how did you actually get, passionate about security and how you made the switch?
I think it comes out of curiosity because I feel like of the software developer or other role in software development, you are more focused on detailed either feature or improvement or bug fixing. And it's more detailed view into the smaller area most of the time until you touch the bigger system, of course.
Yeah.
But still, I feel like as a security person, you need to look a bit farther and wider, to keep in mind all moving elements connected with the application or infrastructure part. And also, it's always on the corner of business and technology. So I think in software development, it's easier to focus really deeply into one part. And sometimes you can maybe even a little bit ignore something. Of course, not too much still.
Yeah.
But as a security person in all kind of tasks and roles I experience till now, it's like you really need to keep in mind other teams, other applications, or parts of infrastructure. And on top of that, also very often compliance side, like very general best practices in security. So from maybe make it more tangible example, right now I was recently I was tasked with drafting the security baseline configuration for cloud infrastructure, and that is very much connected with compliance because you set some rules in the infrastructure services that should reflect the compliance frameworks that will be used. So it's both like very technical work sometimes and very paperwork sometimes.
I think compliance is quite often a lot of paperwork. And with how many people do, for example, on this project? If, of course, you can talk about it. Did you have to involve, and how did you make sure that you get like all the inputs from everyone who matters? And then, from maybe. Have you already thought also maybe about next step? How are you going to translate that baseline, the teams, and to the developers?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm not like the main only brain there, fortunately. So maybe I cannot go into very details here, but for sure I can share that it's really like few teams effort, and I was part just of infrastructure point of view, let's say. But all other colleagues are actually involved in conversations between security and development and other non-security infrastructure teams. So that is alignment sessions, of course. There is brainstorming together. The good thing is that all of us are skilled in their own areas. So when we meet on particular topic, it's easier to actually get some conclusion. So, for example, what rules are really useful for us, which are not that common or can be implemented later. So I think it's always kind of the business oriented priority, but also all the subject matter experts from engineering and security teams are contributing to know what should be done first and what can wait with the less priority.
Okay, I see. And for you, for example, since you come from the initially from the development technical background, did it help a lot to, gain credibility? Because I've seen even like some security people coming as less than AppSec, I think more on like GRC and the C-level side, but even coming, from marketing. For you, since you come from development, did it help a lot to actually when you've worked in AppSec to gain more credibility there?
Definitely. First thing is because I speak the language. I mean,
Mm.
I'm arty person from very beginning,
Yeah.
and it's quite natural for me to both understand and translate the business side in technical language or the other say way around. So I couldn't say like it was very hard for me because I was just working there with various kinds of people across all IT departments and companies, all sizes. So I could get experience and the communication skills in the field. So for me, it was more like changing the topics of main interest and maybe getting more detailed knowledge, of course, like hands-on hard skills and maybe switching in only a little bit my communication vibe, let's say. But definitely it was fine.
But that's interesting. What's the communication vibe that you had to switch?
Well, I think my brain just coined it now. But
Yeah.
what I meant is that there's a bit different atmosphere or vibe or ambience when you're speaking to, let's say, GRC people or high positional leadership, and different vibe if you speak to fellow software engineer or fellow security engineer,
Mm.
getting on touch quickly on some weird topics. So sometimes it's just very technical, let's say, names for the things. And sometimes it's all about the way you cooperate. So you don't need to translate all the notions or like the process. You just know what you do with pull requests, right? Or like
Yeah.
what is the security best practice for, I don't know, mobile application, or for a free bucket for AWS. So you don't need to translate and explain everything if you are on the seminar level regarding engineering knowledge and background.
And if there be, like what one thing that maybe, one of the listeners would have to take away from their experience of some, let's say there might be, some people who work in DevOps or in software engineering thinking about security who are listening. At least I could see them among the subscribers if they want to switch like you did. What is the number one thing you would recommend them to do when they maybe get started or how in the new security role?
I think it's a really a nice place to be if you are already a SRE or DevOps person, software engineer, because you have all the foundation skills to understand the field. So I'm not sure I'm able to just give like very detailed one advice here, but definitely just get your hands dirty with security topics. So start from the field that you are already in. Like, for example, could you add to your dashboards or like the Grafana alerting that is connected with security? Have insights in what security metrics are maybe around you in your company or in the podcasts that you're listening to, or like platforms that could make you the idea what to measure or what to look for? Of course, there is also the foundational knowledge base, I would say, for security topics, like, for example, least privilege principle or like zero trust concept that is very hyped now.
Yeah.
I think it's really like security is multiple areas field, and that also covers, for example, SRE topics a lot, especially in infrastructure. So I would say if you're working in AWS ecosystem, for example, or GCP, just look on their other services connected with security. Look what the security dashboards and metrics are there. Learn a little bit more. Even read documentation about it. And then there are many platforms or like communities where you can try your knowledge in field. And actually, my case was that I was coming from the software development team, and I got curious about security, and I started cooperating with security team within my company. And they were having, as always, lots of work and too little people, so they were pretty happy
Yeah,
to
it's
talk to
usually
me.
the case.
And yeah, I was also very lucky to get understandable managers time. So let's say in a kind of official way, like more in collegial way, I think I spent like 10% of my time working with security team. So basically, I was doing my responsibilities all the time. I just was looking on the other side, also from security angle. And over the time, I think we cooperated already in security tooling. So back in the days, it was CM, so security events and logging software. And from my software engineering team, I was just looking on our application performance in security tools, for example. And I was kind of the security champion actually, without holding this name
Yeah.
in the beginning. And yeah, so that's how it started for me. So no matter what your role actually is, if you have the security team in your team, you can just say, hey guys, do you need maybe some friendly help, or can I just look into your toys to see what I can do that, or like how we can cooperate? That's the idea. And if you don't have security team inside the company, maybe you have the other communities outside, like for example, OWASP community and cooperation. I think in all possible field of security, there are channels in OWASP Slack or like other the meetups, the local meetups over the cities in the world. So yeah, just be open for other topics and people and get in touch, I would say.
Yeah, I think the community aspect of especially like application security is something that's really powerful all across the world, and the fact there are people, who are leading their local chapters and organizing the events. You can definitely see the impact even like on developers, because now in a week we're organizing OWASP AppSec Days France, and I could
Great.
see that among registrants, like sometimes like in big companies, they're literally bringing a team of 4 or 5 developers down. I hope to educate, but at least you can see that they're trying to motivate them to educate themselves on like how to implement secure CI/CD, because there are topics related to supply chain and packages there as well. For you right now, you moved from being a security champion to giving talks about security champions. And
Yeah, it's
yeah,
the common
influ-
myth, just different angle.
yeah. I mean, that's how you also spread your experience and the knowledge. And I think you were quite clearly, passionate about like security champions model. And I've recently had a conversation with another guest on the podcast that it's really depends a lot on the maturity of organization, and it doesn't mean necessarily that the bigger organization is the more mature it's going to be. Like, in your experience, like how do you adapt security champions programs or approach depending on where a company stands on the maturity curve?
That's very valid the topic and question too. I would say I actually ran the security teams program only a few times, and in current workplace, I'm not involved in that, but I'm involved in OWASP Security Champions, as you said. There we also have many discussions how it works in our workplaces, previous, current ones, and we collect the insights from other people in community. So definitely the size of the company is not the directional factor
Yeah.
if the security champion program succeed or not. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's all about the people. So if there are security passionate people in the company, no matter what their role actually is, they could be even not very technical people, then there is a potential to run such a program. And of course, the benefits are there because the more people are aware about security best practices and threats, the easier it is to avoid these risks to happen, materialize. So the engagement of the people and someone who will be taking care of this engagement and having some idea, mission, roadmap, that's very crucial. And it doesn't depend on the size of the company. But that's true that probably the bigger company, probably they can afford a dedicated person more easily to security champion program. I think I tried one to as a consultant yet back in Poland. I tried to help one startup to have their security focus sharpened a little bit. And it was extremely hard for them to just find the proper time and budget and focus. So, yeah, I think after a few sessions, my mission finished there. I would not mark it as successful, but at least they got some points like education and the idea how it could be. But the success of having security champions program is highly dependent on just the resources that are in place and that you really can do afford the things.
Yeah, so more effort on the mindset from the start, because at startups it's a bit hard. I can see, like, since I work in the security tooling company, people, our developers are very passionate about everything that's security related. Also, yeah, impacts a lot how they implement it in their day to day. If sometimes there are some things that might slip through, but yeah, almost. It just doesn't happen because there is this mindset. So I guess, yeah, in this case, if the company is not ready and does not have a mindset, it can potentially backfire. Right? And you mentioned, like, there should be someone always who should be dedicated, or whenever you can, of course, who should be dedicated at monitoring the program. Like, what would you recommend them to implement? What metrics would you recommend to them to implement in this case when they just get started?
What do you mean by matrix?
Like metrics, like of the impact.
Metrics, right. So
I mean, they can implement metrics as well. Is developer or security conscious less? Yeah.
right. Oh my God, that really depends on the state of art in the company and what they do. Because for let's say hardware company, it will be extremely hard to focus on, I don't know, their embedded software processors, for example, right? Or actually, yeah, I think that the metrics are very important, but they should be developed after knowing why the company wants to run security champions program. So the business metrics more like to start, like what could be our gain, or if we defined already what are our main issues, problems, risks right now. Because if no one in company knows what the risks of their particular situation are, it's actually a little bit like doing that for just the sake of having it, and it might backfire quite quickly. So let's say some example, or maybe I can start with anti-pattern.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting though.
So I think the anti-pattern would be, for example, the number of fixed security issues in 1 month, for example, because it is some metric, but it doesn't say if the actually security issues were the critical one for a company, if it makes sense to do that, if they were prioritized correctly with proper severity and priority, and if it actually touches the work of the people working in the company. It's always kind of context is a king here, unfortunately, too.
Yeah.
So metrics could be really different types of things. That could be amount, that could be coverage, that could be the mean time to recover from incident, for example. But that's all connected with the context. So it's very hard for me to now to generalize it a bit. But yeah, that's regarding the security champions program itself, the metric could be, for example, how many security champions are in the engineering team as a total, but it also needs to be bundled with the sense check of what they are doing. So yeah, we had one meeting each month in last year. That's a nice metric to have, but it doesn't say anything about engagement or like how effective the community work is.
Or yeah, how secure the final code is actually being pushed and merged in the production. And sometimes
Yes,
people can meet and talk, but then there is no action afterwards.
there actually I see the opportunity to work with other functions like SREs, for example, or the people who are working with CI/CD pipelines. So securing CI/CD pipeline is like perfect task for between software engineer or SRE role, depending on what the particular company is, how they are handling that. So that could be like, for example, the metric, how many security risks were caught over the pre-built step, for example, or how many, depending on what the pipeline is built from, of course.
Mm.
But let's say before Security Champions program, there was like no security step or like only 2 out of 3. And after implementing Security Champions strategy and Security Champions working on that, there is additional helpful step in security in the pipeline. So that could be really effective to showcase actually that for example, we shipped the application with 20% less security risks over the time after we implemented security champions checks, for
Okay.
example.
And you mentioned like in the discussion that at the beginning you always have to define the kind of the goal why you want to run it, and it's different per organization. But what is kind of the biggest disagreement that you've seen or discussion around what should be, our final goal with Security Champions program? Or is it always
Uh,
like easier to come to the conclusion depending on the company?
it's always easier when you have a good cooperation and connection with business leadership, because then if they understand the potential values or they even are actually driving the initiative, because it also could be the case in the world,
Yeah.
then it's either easier to actually cooperate on that and get the buy-ins from all other stakeholders, let's say, or people on the ladder. So I think maybe a little bit a dry example, but working would be here the ransomware risk. So let's say if the COO of company understands the ransomware risk for their company, because, for example, they're a financial company, then it will be much easier to get a buy-in from all other people and to run such a security champion program around this topic first, for example. So let's say the goal would be we want to have security champions program in place in order to be as much as secure against ransomware risk, because it is important for our business values and for our actually being maybe in the market and the reputation. So after defining this kind of goals, it's always easier to talk with different stakeholders or just the people who should lead their engineers to be security champions. So kind of getting buy-in on the business value that is connected with security topics and security itself.
You're also on a discussion about the security champions itself. You have representations, from both the US and the EU. For example, Marissa Fagan, the Irfan Santa, like all of you kind of all over the world. And what kind of the differences in the mindset that you've seen between the two sides of the Atlantic?
Oh, that's interesting kind of culture question, right?
Yes. Security champions are related to cultures.
Yes.
I'm not talking about Asia because that would be a whole another story.
Yeah, I'm also not much really skilled in Asia. I worked for US and Europe companies, and I come from Eastern Europe. So what I definitely see it's the change or like the difference in flexibility. So in Eastern Europe, it's obvious that you can have so many hats in the same time. You can be security champion, I don't know, SRE and security, which not always means it's good, right? But at
Yeah.
least you have the flexible mindset there. And also people, when once they get the curiosity, they are just kind of getting the time to have the things done in the fields that are interesting for them. So it's I think there is important both to have the buy-in from leadership and like bottom up, let's say, so from engineers themselves. And when they are convinced, they actually are able to run it themselves. And on the other side of the ocean, I think sometimes people are a little bit more waiting for allowance from the higher leadership with some getting responsibilities that are not in their daily schedule. But I think I might be biased here. It's just my view from some, let's say, probes. For sure, there are different companies on all sides of the world. But yeah, also the fact that we cooperate internationally in a OWASP Security Champions Guide project means that it's still viable and a good topic, no matter what place in the world. And more on the culture. No, I wanted to say something about the creative approach to the problems.
I mean, Eastern Europeans do have creative approach to the problems.
Yes. And now when I'm working in Germany, I see like, for example, about the budget, like I kind of was used to the fact that even without a budget, you still can do some things. And here sometimes people like say, we didn't get the budget, we cannot do the things. And I'm thinking, but why?
Hmm.
And sometimes it really makes sense because you basically invest either your free time or your resources, and it's not always has to be like that, right? So I think the blend of these approaches would be the best one because running out of your free time, I mean, the personal time off or like personal resources for driving some initiative, it's maybe could be a good thing to start the things, but definitely not to maintain it. On some point of the Security Champions program or other initiatives types, you really need the proper budget and set of responsibilities and buy-ins.
Yeah, and proper support within our organization because, as you mentioned, yeah, it's time-wise, it is also kind of money which you're getting, let's say, your budget, your bonus from, something like that, depending on your objective, and if it's tied to objectives too. In this case, it's definitely yes. Well, I think it depends probably not on the culture, but also on the culture of organization and the size of organization. Because let's say in startups, you tend to be kind of figure out things without budget sometimes. Just no option. I can't do it because of the budget, because it's just how it is. So it just depends. And if in this season, I always have a question. If there would be one buzzword that you consider like the most overrated right now in security, what would it be?
So I have my favorite one here,
Yeah.
which is zero trust. Yeah, I mean, the concept itself is great. It's actually the best security ever, right? Because you want really to have separated all the granular points of access and proper, I don't know, tunneled communication things and protocols and everything. But unfortunately, what I'm observing, it's a lot of hype around all kind of angles around this topic. So most of the vendors, also from cloud infrastructure, says we are zero trust.
Mm.
You can trust us that we have zero trust concept implemented. And some of them, of course, are like aiming to do that. They have some features connected with network, some features connected with access management. but in fact, it's very hard to get it really covered fully and have the proper zero trust in place. And that's also because each company is different and has different security measures, different possibilities regarding the budget, tooling, legacy systems, and so on. So yeah, that's like zero trust is something like everyone claims that they are doing that, but no one really knows what the final stage or stage of that should be. And I would say it's very hard to do proper zero trust concept with just security team. It always should be the buy-in from other stakeholders because of the budget and implementation. So for example, whenever I see the attempt to implement zero trust approach, that it requires really cooperation quite closely between engineering teams, SRE teams, and security, because it's just about the system as a whole. It's never just security, which is somewhere like
Trying to
injected.
do everything. Yeah, but I
Yes.
think they probably also, not everyone understands what it is. In the beginning, you have to do a lot of education of actually explaining what you're trying to create with this approach, and only then starting to collaborate all together. But it's definitely been the most popular word that people don't like, and that in this season. Yeah, there be one book that you could recommend for someone in security, what would it be?
I was thinking about some book published in Poland, but it's more from baselines of application security. I would say the anti-pattern of a good cybersecurity book would be, which is outdated, overly simplistic, or inaccurate in the technical details, because the cybersecurity fields, like all areas in cybersecurity, are quite quickly changing. And the things that are working today will not be working in a few months. So I would say books are great, but in this field, I would highly recommend more podcasts like yours here. Or yeah, talk cybersecurity conferences, recordings. For example, OS Barcelona, I think, have most of the recordings in place over internet. But for sure, I can recommend one thing about Security Champions. Apart from our project, there is such a nice person like Tanya Yanka, coming from Canada. And for sure, she made public her presentation from Global AppSec Barcelona, which was actually really great because it was both about anti-patterns and how to succeed with your Security Champions program. So that's definitely a great source that is available there.
Yeah, yeah, I think Tanya Jankic is very loved by the AppSec community, and yeah, I'll definitely put the link to that presentation in
Her insights
the.
are just great, so why not?
She has a lot of experience in building those programs from the scratch, so that's also a lot of sharing from the field. Oh, thank you so much, Aleksandra, for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to see this episode live.
Thank you very, very much. I wish you yourself and all our audience the safe time in your companies and private life.
Yeah, not so much private data being exposed.